All right. Hello there. Welcome to another edition of Letters from Camp. Tonight, our guest is Chrissy Chamberlain, who is the Scoutmaster of Troop 163 Sturbridge. And she also is a former Winoxet staff member. Chrissy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. You?
Fantastic.
Nice.
So as we start, we like to kind of get an overview of you and your career at camp. So kind of what's your camp story? Where did you first go? How many years did you work on staff? Where did you work? All that type of stuff. And I know your story might involve other camps as well. So be sure to include that as well.
Yeah. So I actually started at Camp Laurelwood as a day camper, as a Girl Scout, and then I became what's called a PAV. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's the Girl Scout equivalent of counselor training. So I started there, and then I think I started tagging along with my dad and my brother to Scout Camp in about 95 or so. And that's when I met Linda Josty. And thank you, Linda. I absolutely love you for this. She was the one who first introduced me into the idea of being on staff at Treasure Valley. And my dad was not happy with Linda, but I was. And so subsequently in 97, I joined staff. It was only supposed to be for the week that the boys troop was out. But I went for staff week, did the staff training with them, and then they hired me. And that was the start. So when I first started at Treasure Valley, we were running 7 days of camp. So staff had rotating days off. So my primary position was in the trading post, but I also helped out on the waterfront, which didn't last long because my fair skin and bright sun all day don't mix too well. And I also helped out in the nature area. So I did that. Then we stopped doing 7-day camp. I think 98 was the last year that we did that, and went to 6 days. So I was the trading post manager, trading post staff there in 97, 98, 99, became the trading post manager in 2000. In 2001, I kind of did triple role in 2001. My business manager, who was a professional scouter, got transferred. And then the kid who was supposed to be helping me as the trading post aide got one of those like real paying jobs. So that left me there that year kind of doing it myself. So it was a rough summer. That was my last summer at camp as well. And then I did have a year off, 2002. I didn't go back for various reasons to Treasure Valley. But the summer of probably 99, 2000, I had started to meet people like Jeff D, Sean Walker, Gary Shepard, because they were doing National Camp School, and that was held at Treasure Valley. And I helped out in the kitchen during those weeks. So that's when I met Jeff D. And when I talked to him in 2002, he had just hired his last person for staff that week. So he told me to apply for the next year. And then in 2003, I started up at Winoxet. I was the trading post manager and then the business manager there from 2003 to 2005. 2006 to 2009, I was the Cub Camp director at Camp Split Rock. Left that because I was working on my master's, and it was just really hard to work on my master's and run camp at the same time. I was Treasure Valley's Cub Camp director in 2011, and then that was kind of the end of my summer camp life.
Now 2003 to 2005, I was there as well.
Yep.
That was kind of my rejoining Winoxet. And there really weren't a lot of female staff at the time. You know, nurse, yourself, pretty much it.
Yep.
And now, you know, when I go up to camp and things, there's obviously a lot of female staff. So how do you feel, you know, kind of that growth of, you know, the, I guess, diversification of the staff has impacted both the program and kind of culture of camp?
So I was thinking about this question when you had sent it to me, and I think I need to go over a little bit of the history of females in scouting to really demonstrate how it's changed and why I think it's great, but we still have a long way to go. So 1969 was the first year youth females were allowed in the program. That was exploring. Adult females, I'm kind of fuzzy on the date. It was either late 60s or early 70s. but they were only allowed to be den mothers or committee members. It wasn't until the 90s when they could actually be scoutmasters, assistant scoutmasters, cub masters, and we switched to the term den leader instead of den mother. So when I started on staff, it was the mid to late 90s. So we were still kind of all fighting for our own way, I guess you could say. So it was definitely a bit challenging, and we've come a long way from there. But at least at Treasure Valley, there were a few more females on staff. So it was different for me going from there to Winoxet when it was just me and Becky. Mm-hmm. And, Becky was the older adult. She was the mom to a couple. I was the first standalone female staffer since the 80s, from what I had been told. The rest were either somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, things like that. So it was definitely interesting. And the first 18 to 21-year-old female staffer was Amanda Bont. And that was, she probably had a bit of a culture shock like I did going to Winoxet. And the first female CIT at Winoxet was Annie Souza. But even then, Amanda, Annie, and myself, we were really only standalone females. There wasn't much else there. So that was kind of interesting. I remember being told up at Winoxet that I had my mom's Jeep because we were moving stuff back and forth to Lancaster, the scout shop. So the girls can't drive Jeep. You need to get in the passenger seat. Whoa, buddy. And just being that standalone, the time John was working at the fire department still, and he was part-time. He was the adventure team, I think, back then. Not even a part. He did ranger stuff, but he was adventure team, and he was like, he wasn't there at the time when I moved in. And I remember it wasn't Kev, it was Ross saying, well, there's a grumpy old man who lives on the porch, but he's not bad. And like, John was the first friend I made at camp. He was awesome. I love John. So going through all of that and then seeing the transition to Amanda and then Annie, and now seeing on both camp staffs the number of females, whether it's campers or staff members, is absolutely amazing. And I know they're still fighting some of these grumpy leaders, I'm going to put very nicely, who don't think that they belong. I'm glad it's not as bad as when I was on staff, but they need to know they're not alone, and there's a lot more of us that support them now. But I think it's phenomenal to see so many on staff. And so it's phenomenal to see, and that they're being treated as more equals. Mm-hmm. And I guess that was a really roundabout way of saying that. I tried to make I wouldn't be, but it's absolutely great to see. I absolutely love it. I can't wait to see more diversity in other ways too, but I love seeing how far we've come in just it's almost 30 years now, huh? Okay.
We'll call it 20. It's fine.
All right. Since I first started, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it was interesting, just helping out over the summer, teaching a merit badge, and just realizing this is the first time I've taught a merit badge class with female campers. And, I'd worked with female staff, obviously, many years, but the first time, like, in a merit badge class was very, very different. Not different, but I was really happy to see that. And I was like, this is awesome.
I should point out, though, because you and I both did Cub Camp staff. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a different dynamic when it came to females on staff at Cub Camp staff versus resident camp staff. A lot more females on those than the resident camp for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what, as a scoutmaster, kind of have been some of your observations from kind of that transition at Winoxet to having kind of female campers? I know you said, we still have a ways to go. What are kind of some things maybe we're doing really well, and where's maybe some areas for growth with that?
So things we're doing really well. I think we were ahead of the curve with that because we've had venturers coming to Winoxet for quite a while now. So it really wasn't that big of a leap between the venturers coming in being co-ed, and then now female scout troops. The part that is still kind of frustrating for me is I'd like to see us share a little bit more of our history and how far we've come. Because I still think there are a lot of females out there who think they don't have the help and support, and maybe aren't seeing it as much. I tell my scouts all the time, I says, you've got to let me know. This is not appropriate. Unfortunately for me, a lot of people won't say this stuff around me because they know I'm not going to put up with it. So they're getting it on other ends of things. And we need to help them know they're not alone. They need to let us know when, these negative comments are happening. Because a lot of it's done in more, I know scouts don't have private situations, but it's more that off comment, like just walking down, or if somebody passes by a group of scouts, they'll say it then. So it's a little more private than like a big, big group of them. So just making our scouts more aware of the fact that, we're here for them. They're not alone. Dude, I've been fighting this fight for a while. I have no problem fighting it for you, but you got to let me know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we're doing a pretty, like I said, Wonoxet had the edge because they were doing the venturers for quite a while beforehand. So the transition was really smooth. There were a lot of other places, that I was hearing about. They're like, well, we're going to have to build a whole new bathroom. Can we even have them in the same merit badge class? And we didn't have to fight those battles because we were already doing it. Knew that, no, you don't have to have a separate merit badge class. Like, it's an individual stall. You don't have to designate it male or female. Just don't have two people in there at once. Not that, we don't have the 8 saber anymore, so we don't have to worry about that.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness for that. All right, let's shift into our lightning round. So standard set of questions that we ask all of our guests. So first off, what is your favorite camp song?
I have 2. One I can't remember the words to, but I really liked it. It was the Star Wars song that Bateman came up with my first year on staff. That was like, all I can remember from it is Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I don't, but
that's based on an old Bill Murray SNL skit. So you could
Yeah.
probably find it on YouTube if
I had
that's a
to.
good one.
I'm not up that late. I didn't know that. But I like On My Honor. I think it's a really nice kind of slow song, and just, I don't know, there's just something about it I really like.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. How about favorite camp skit?
I really like Suitor Comes to Court if it's done right. And then a live action version of Pinderella and the Sits.
I can never do that one. That's too much of a tongue twister for me. How about your favorite camp meal?
So I have my most favorite hated meal, but my most favorite meal would be the turkey dinners up at Wonoxet, because I love seeing like that giant half turkey on the platter. But so when I was on staff at Treasure Valley, it was staff only in the dining hall because there was insight cooking for everybody. And Phyllis King was one of the chefs, her and Ruth Hutnick, and a couple others. And they made this meatloaf one night, and it, like, whatever seasonings they used, it was probably rosemary, but they left it on the twigs, and like it looked like it had stuff sticking out all over it. And so at our table, we actually turned the loaf of meatloaf into roadkill, complete with fork marks as tire tracks. But nobody wanted to bring it to the window because we were all petrified of what Phyllis and Ruth were going to do to us. But that is one of my favorite meals, just because of the implications that went with it.
How about your favorite place in camp?
So I picked one for each of the camps that I worked at, besides Laurelwood, because I don't remember back that far. I like porch setting on the admin porch up at Wonoxet, because you can kind of see everything, but then it's a nice peaceful view of the lake. I loved going to Boonesville and sitting underneath the flagpoles, because you could see out on the field, you could see out on the water. It was just a really nice place to be. It was actually the best place in camp to watch the storms roll in, but also the worst place because you were under the flagpoles. And then at Split Rock, there's, as you head down towards the waterfront, where the dam is. Like it just kind of waterfalls and trickles over and then trickles down into the stream, and it's just like a nice peaceful area to sit.
All right. So when you kind of first got to camp, did you have someone who was like your camp hero or staff member you looked up to kind of as a role model?
Um, Not particularly, because when I went to camp, both camps, I was really kind of an outsider and didn't really know anybody on either camp staffs. As I grew at Winoxet, though, I would definitely have to say Jeff D was probably one of the best role models and mentors that I've ever had. He was absolutely amazing, with everything he did and the fun work balance that he had. I do have some fun flashback photos for you, but they're actual photos, so I have to scan them into you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think for most people who worked at camp between 2000 and 2005, that would definitely be the common answer. And I think he's probably a reason why a lot of us are the way we are.
Yep.
Um, all right, great. So definitely thank you for being with us. And yeah, to all of our viewers, stay tuned next month for another edition of Letters from Camp. Thanks, Chrissy.
You're welcome. Have a good night.